Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for Spoiler in Time today. As per usual, we'll be spoiling Justified, this time, episode 12 of season 1. Before that, though, I want to take a moment to spoil Better Call Saul, episode 7 of season 2. But even before that, we are going to spoil the finale, episode 8 of 11/22/63. But Brian Brushwood, if I may, before we get to any of that, I would like to introduce you as Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, well, I would like to introduce the Cordkillers Summer Movie Draft!
I don't like Chainsaw Suit anymore. They have 260 million. Even with the second week fall off, these guys have 4.8 per dollar. What is it? No, 10 million per dollar spent.
Yeah, nope, that's the target. If you want to hit $1 billion, which is usually what it takes to win the game, you want to average about 10 real dollars for every video game or game dollar spent, and they're doing it, man. I mean, granted, they were able to get this, blockbuster for only $26. And on the flip side, though, there is no staying power for Batman versus Superman. I think it had a sharper fall off week over week than even X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was the all-time record holder for quickest drop off in for comic-based movies. I don't know if any of that's true, but that's what I heard at some point.
Well, and so it really does put them out of reach for now, but it doesn't wrap up the entire movie draft, because even though it only cost them $26, the rest of their lineup is as if they spent more. They have Mother's Day, they have Alice Through the Looking Glass, they have TMNT Out of the Shadows, they have Central Intelligence. That's it.
Yep. Amtrekker spent $8 on My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2, which pulled in $36 million. You think what, we're going to end up around $60 million for that? Not a bad buy.
Yeah, I think this is one that is a slower drop off, but it didn't start high enough for that to really make much of a difference.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, he might get 50 million out of it, I think. And then we were a week without a movie, but coming up on April 8th will be Hardcore Henry and the Boss, 2 Night Attack movies.
Yeah, a.k.a. 1/3 of our entire budget flushed right down the drain. Hardcore Henry went for a ridiculous $24 because
Hardcore Henry went for $2 less than Batman versus Superman.
Yes, okay, but that was because we could buy out the rest of the slate because it was next to the end. And so we went ahead and just bought it for dirt cheap so we could get it and Civil War. The Boss, though, was at $9, I hope, a decent buy. We'll see how that one actually turns out.
Yeah, I am starting to get excited about the things I'm hearing about the Jungle Book. It's getting positive reviews early. A lot of people saying it's good, and that's the first of the DTNS movies that comes out in 2 weeks. So we got a couple emails about the movie draft here, non-spoilery emails. The whole show is called Spoiler in Time, but just saying. One is Mike saying, I heard someone asking for a graph for the current movie draft. So T2 and I set up a league on Box Office Draft, boxofficedraft.com, and you can find a graph, boxofficedraft.com/league/night-attack-movie-draft.
Pretty awesome, because it's one thing to just see some numbers indicating what goes where, but again, I totally empathize with you, Mike. I too respond to visual stimulation in that it tells a story when you're watching stuff move up and down like that.
And then another email from Vince says, just a small note from one of the bosses. If $1 a month even qualifies for that title, yes, it does.
Totally does.
A penny a month.
All right, let's not go crazy, Tom. Come on.
I mean, also 100 million a month qualifies you for that. You give what you feel is comfortable, the more the better. I enjoy the movie draft. It's fun, and honestly, the only reason I download Spoiler in Time. Now, my small note, maybe for next time, could you publish when the movie draft is going to happen to Patreon? I really don't spend much time on Twitter, and I would actually listen to Night Attack for that episode and maybe even be able to compete in the Diamond Club movie draft, which closes 24 hours after the episode is recorded. Love the show. Really appreciate the work you put into it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Nice request.
That's on us. We spent so much time. We had a late end to the winter movie draft because it was a nail biter right down to the very end. So it was 30 days after the last movie came out. We were busy watching that, and then we looked up 2 weeks had passed, and we're like, oh crap, we got to do it this week if we're going to do it at all. So that's on us. We'll try to be better moving forward.
And for my part, I get in the bad habit of thinking of this as the Night Attack movie draft, because the summer is the Night Attack movie draft, and this started on the NSFW show. which became Night Attack. So I've got to remember that y'all are still interested in it. That's why we're talking about it. And I'll try to remember to do that too.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it started on the BB Live show all
It
the
did
way
start
back.
back on BB Live show for real.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, how about that?
Wow.
Back in
It's got
2009.
roots, man. It's got roots.
Crazy.
All right, let's start off with something else that got roots. The 11/22/63 from Hulu.
Tom, there's a wonderful, wonderful story awaiting you when you read the book. Look, I understand every decision they made. It's like, we only have 8 episodes. We got to tell this story. It's objectively about saving JFK. So we have to keep focusing on the JFK story. We can't have a bunch of scenes of him walking around like a boring person. So we have to invent this other character. Now we have to get rid of that extra character that we invented. Also, we got to have some big pivot moment at the end. And what they got is something that in no way resembles what I love about the book. As somebody who has not read the book, I would love to hear from both Bryce and from you what you thought of the whole thing as a whole. And what's funny is, and this has happened with other stories as well, now that it's over with, I want to give it a retroactive bump in my criticisms. In my positive vibes. Like, for some reason, once Marco Polo was over with, I look back on it and be like, well, it wasn't that bad. It was kind of cute. I kind of like this. This is good interaction.
Is that just the brain's defense mechanism of not remembering pain?
Yeah, well, I think in the moment you see all the cracks and crevices, but then when you remember it, you remember this gestalt of all the broad strokes and the general themes. And I think that's where I'm at now that it's all over with. So tell me what you think.
Yeah. Partway through this first episode, I was enthralled. And at that point, if you would have asked me, my criticism would have been, wow, I think they took a 3-episode series and tried to make it 8. Because this is really good. This is what I wanted. Lee Harvey Oswald is in the book depository, and they're trying to get there. And as they're running, we see the guy open the umbrella, right? And we see Mr. Zapruder setting up his camera. Like, this is what I wanted. And him like racing across the book depository after the first shot, and just then getting to stop Lee Harvey Oswald. And yet you still see the guy jumping on the back of the car, and it was a mixture of actual history with the alternate history, and what are these choices going to mean, and the fast pushing against him. I was a little bit like, well, should he be driving so recklessly if the past is pushing against him? Because wouldn't the past just like upend his car really easily? But anyway, even then I was into it. And then he gets taken in, and it's a little shoddy. It's a little slipshotty how they decided that he had done all of this, but I could sort of understand it. There's a lot of confusion, right? And it was a cool moment to be like, is Jack Ruby going to pop up? A little disappointed Jack Ruby didn't pop up when they showed the black and white footage of Mr. Amberson being carried in. But then it totally fell apart for me when the president is on the line, because not that is a great moment. I'm not criticizing the moment, but they just spent a lot of energy convincing me that nobody believes him, or even if they do, they don't care because they need a patsy. So why would the president call him then? Who told the president that this is the guy who saved his life when everyone is telling him, no, you're the guy who actually caused the problem in the first place?
Yeah, and they could have solved that. The problem was they wanted to create some tension and maybe do a little bit of a head fake, because once they've saved the president, you don't want it to be all roses. He's going through.
No, I get that.
You want a dark moment. Basically kind of wedge that. Well, I don't know. It gets even darker from there, right? Because then he goes back.
And that was a problem for me, because I thought I was when he got taken in and the tension was, oh man, they're not going to believe him. They think that he did it. Then like my expectation was like, oh, okay, so he can't go back because he's going to be rotting in a jail cell.
Yeah, it did feel like it was about to become an ironic twist Twilight Zone episode there at the end, right?
Yeah. I kind of had I thought the ending was like, the ending made sense for the story that they told, right? Like, just from hearing your impressions, Brian, that they kind of shoved this love story element into the original story. And so at that point, that's kind of how you have to have the ending, is like, he's got to go back and appreciate her, but also recognize that she is better off without him. And I actually thought the first 15 minutes were like pretty weak. And you have like 5 of those minutes is just Jake and Sadie walking up the stairs of the book depository for entirely too long. Running, sorry.
For 15 minutes, I get it, but running.
Then you have the standoff with Oswald, but the spatial choreography of that scene is so confusing. You've got Jake who like totally flanks Oswald, but then is still trying to like flank him again, and I swear I did not see Sadie get hit.
No,
I saw her on the ground.
Didn't show it.
They didn't show it. Right.
Okay.
The implication is there were just so many bullets flying, one hit her when we weren't looking.
Okay. So I thought maybe I missed something, but that was like, oh, she's shot now. Whoops.
That was in the script.
Yeah.
Oh golly. Whoops.
But I think going back to the revised present worked out pretty well. It didn't connect to me that was the janitor immediately. Just because I just didn't remember his face. So him going back and being creepy with Sadie, like that made sense. Him finding her and the very like coincidentally timed recognition award, that made sense. And he dances with her and she's not creeped out by like how incredibly pervy he's being if you have no other context. But in the end, like, I don't know. There's a love story there, and I definitely don't know that starting the series with like, hey, don't have a love story, and then having the love story be maybe the greatest thing.
So things I liked about this. I liked seeing the overt crossovers with the rest of the Stephen King universe. Things I just caught was, there's red rum written on the wall, and it's literally there. I had to go through 7 times to get the one screen grab where you saw the entire word shown at once. The rest of it is everything's partially occluded on there, so it's like they didn't hit you over the head with it, but it was a nice little Easter egg if you're a fan. Same with the Captain Trips in the bad Sideways universe where everything was bad. Although that felt a little bit clumsy too, because he gets to the rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden the color palette just instantly switches flipped, and they're like, now it's color, but it's all gray and nasty and vignetted.
Well, and I thought at first it was an effect of him coming back, right? It was like, oh, we're gonna show that he's affected. It's gonna take a while for his eyes to adjust. I didn't realize that was like, oh no, that's just the color tone of the post-apocalyptic future.
Right. Although I did like the fact that they told a very vague story. I don't think they ever talked about a particular event that caused everything.
I wanted to know more about that world, and maybe that's why I wanted that, because they did a good job of whetting my appetite.
In the book, again,
they refer
the
to
book
Wallace
goes,
becoming president, which I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. So Kennedy serves 2 terms, and then Wallace takes over, and I can see where that would cause all the world to go to hell, but I wanted to know more. Like, how did it happen? What happened?
In the book, spoiler alert, I'm about to tell you something that happened in the book, but forget you, it's spoilerin time. In the book, it's implied there's a massive earthquake on the West Coast that kills like hundreds of thousands of people.
Don't tell me things that happened in the book. I haven't read the book yet.
Oh, you bastard. I warned you.
I said spoiler alert. Spoilery.
I said spoiler alert. In the book.
What am I supposed to do? Leave the show?
Yeah. All I'm saying is that it's implied that there are consequences for his actions, like that the scales have to be balanced, and it's balanced with a natural disaster of equal proportions somewhere else, right?
And they do drop a couple of hints in the show. They talk about the bombing and the riots and the camps, but
the JFK camps.
JFK
camps. Seems like a Jimmy Carter type.
Yeah. I did like the way they sold that, although ultimately, much like Jimmy Carter, we don't remember his presidency very fondly. We probably would love Jimmy Carter if he was assassinated. A lot of people do
remember Jimmy Carter's presidency very fondly. Not all of us agree on that. I'm not saying I'm one of them.
Okay, I'm just saying as a collective, the American Gestalt. We don't whatever. But we very fondly remember his service, with Habitat for Humanity for years to come, and I could see JFK being that kind of thing. But can I confess something? I think of the 3 of us, I've been the most critical of the execution of this show all the way through from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. But that end scene with him dancing with Sadie is exactly as it's told in the book. Freaking cried like a faucet. It's 1 a.m. last night and just tears streaming down my face because it's such a great ending in the book. And we've talked about this in the book. There's multiple iterations. He sees her, several times where she doesn't know who he is. And to have this one kind of, this is the end of that journey for him, and this is the last time he'll ever see her. It tapped into that vein and just. That part, even though it was a very cheap production, like look at it again, and it looks like they just rented that part. They went to an actual high school and they just put up some banners they got at Kinko's done. But it was such a powerful moment in the book that I liked it a lot.
And I thought they did a good casting there. She looked like someone who potentially could have been an older Sadie.
I was so glad they didn't
just make the actress who played Sadie wear old makeup.
Yes. Can we get past that? Can we stop making up our actors like Prometheus when they took what's his name and just they never even showed him young. They just put it.
I mean. There's something to be said for like, oh, we have the technology to make the actual actor look older, whether it's through digital effects or whatever. And that's fine. That's great when it works. But it so often doesn't, especially on a lower budget thing. Like on a huge $1 billion feature film, maybe you can Benjamin Button things, right? Great. But when they like, oh, we'll just put some gray lines on her face and now she's old. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I thought the casting was great. I thought that her acting in that moment was great. She was the character of Sadie, just older. It was, well, anyway, yeah, I liked how it ended. Everybody read the book. Everybody read the book.
Let's move on to Better Call Saul, episode 7. Jimmy puts on the Saul clothes. It's a nice little tease of like, oh, this is kind of the kind of thing Saul wears. So now I guess we know where he got the clothes and tries to get fired and successfully does. So that's taken care of now. And meanwhile, we see Jimmy giving a little assistance to Mike to take a judo move on the gun charge where he's able to say, no, it was not Tuco's gun, but no, I'm not going to take a gun charge either.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because I thought like to the tune of $50,000 cash and the explicit instructions of what you're going to say, it was curious to me that he accepted payment and that did not deliver the goods that he promised to.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It was very clear, like, you will tell them it was your gun. And Mike didn't.
Very, very obviously didn't. Very overtly didn't.
Mike got the same result they were after, which is the gun charge got dropped against Tuco. So I don't know whether it matters, but I wonder if that's something that's going to come back.
Yeah. Also, I did like the fact that Ed Bigley Jr. just totally saw through Saul's ruse. He's like, I get it. You want me to fire you. Just tell me, and they kind of leveled with each other.
And then for a second, I thought that Kim Wexler was going to partner up. And I was like, oh, do we have a partner in Better Call Saul that goes away and that's when he becomes Saul Goodman? Or is he gonna become Saul Goodman right now because he needs to change
things? Can I tell you how happy I was that she didn't take that deal? Because if she did, I felt heavy. I'm like, look, he's just going to disappoint you. We know how this ends, and it's not with you being on Breaking Bad.
It's what made me think was like, oh, does she get killed? Right?
Maybe.
And now I don't think that because this is so consistent with her character. She wants to be friends, wants to be lovers with Jimmy, but she really doesn't want to be too committed to what Jimmy does. So it's exactly what her on-off again relationship with him, which is like, we'll be in the same office, we just won't be working for the same companies. So which is great whenever I want to.
Because we've already seen the story. Twice we've seen the story of Saul Goodman trying to be somebody he isn't. And now we're ready for him to become the person that we know and love/hate. It's great that we see the echoes of those things, and it's great that we see the motivations of it. I think it's a consistent, smart move on all the characters' actions. Normally in this kind of situation, you could see someone flip a switch and go sideways, but I didn't see that from anyone.
And I definitely think they set up Kim Wexler's motivation very well, which is she hadn't really considered going entirely solo until Jimmy brought it to her, but she also didn't want to be hooked up with him, so she found a solution. And that is consistent with who she is and how she acts. And I think it's great that Jimmy actually did push her to take a risk that she wouldn't have taken otherwise. I got one big problem with this episode, though.
Yeah,
Brian.
what's that?
They brought the car back and said the charity didn't want it. I mean, I find that hard to believe.
Wait, really? I thought that was a great bit. I thought like
well, when he drives up in the car, I'm like, wait, didn't the car get like put in a trash compactor or something by this point? Like it's still around?
Yeah, I don't know. It's of all the things that I'm going to fault Breaking Bad Better Call Saul for being too over the top on, I don't think this is what I don't think this one makes the list.
I just don't no, it did occur to me, but yeah, no, I thought this was a great episode on the Jimmy McGill side, which we've been simmering for a while.
Yes.
And the Mike side was intriguing as well, and I like that they crossed those two again.
Awesome.
Makes sense that Mike would now consider Jimmy the guy he calls, because that's going to lay the foundations for the Breaking Bad relationship as well.
By the way, I did. For those of you guys remember, I had when I had Sling TV. The only thing I used it for was to watch Better Call Saul live, and then too many times I tried to watch it live and it didn't work. We recently completely redid the routers, so I'm gonna go back. I reinstalled Windows. I have a brand new fresh install, and it's Better Call Saul night tonight. So I think my account's still going from that. So I think I'm gonna try it again. But if not, I'm gonna burn this MFer down.
It's weird. Like I never have problems watching Better Call Saul. I've had a couple of problems watching Walking Dead, but recently I've had a streak of good luck. The other day, what was I trying to watch on demand? Oh, it was Star Wars Rebels, and it just wouldn't play.
Oh, don't give me. I want to tell a story, but it's too inside baseball just yet. I got an email from somebody who turns out was a fan who works at Sling TV, and I promised him I would give it another try. Good. That's another part of it.
Well, let's get to Justified, episode 12 of season 1. So we're one episode away from the season finale of season 1, and we are definitely in story arcville at this point. Do you remember what happens?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? I watched this thing last night. It was the first of the three that I watched.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Here's what I remember is thinking that Timothy Oliphant is a much better actor than the guy playing his dad. And that interaction between the two of them, like there's brief moments that I believe his dad, but I feel like Timothy Oliphant is going to beat the crap out of that old man. Like he's about had it. You remember there's this is really all about his dad and about
this is where they want his dad to wear the wire, and his dad doesn't want to wear the wire, and then he talks to the vet who has the grenade and realizes, well, I guess I might as well wear the wire then.
Yeah, but then he goes in and he writes down, like, play along, pretend this is cash. But then also...
Which is ballsy, and I'm glad they played it the way they did, because Bo is like, I don't. Why would I play along with you? Because I was thinking that. I'm like, why would you assume that he would?
Right. But like, if he's going to screw over him, he's going to do it not just by ruining this investigation. He's going to do it by killing the guy. So he's got to say just enough to convey his meaning. That was a fun scene.
Yeah.
A bit surprised, and I guess it was handled well. I've never been divorced, so I don't know what weird energy there is when you run into someone at an emotionally charged time that you used to be physically intimate with. But I felt like it might look like what we saw of her just walking in and just taking off her ring and setting it down, and then, like this kind of, we're both powerless to stop this moment or whatever. And it was good that they didn't hold it over our heads like, oh, love triangle for a few episodes, I guess.
No,
but instead they got right to it.
Winona took advantage of Raylan there. She knows that Raylan is a little lost, and she is seeing a side of him that she either never saw or didn't value enough before. And so I look at this as like, Raylan's just like, he's, as far as relationships go, he's confused, right? Mm-hmm. We've been shown that he doesn't have a stiff backbone when he and Ava hooked up. So it's no surprise that she walks in, takes off her wedding ring. We know what Raylan's going to do.
Right.
What I'm curious about is why Winona did that. Once she's in the door, that you're right, that all seems to ring true. And I've never been divorced either, so I can't say for sure. But that all reads true to me. But why she went there in the first place is an interesting question, because we've been shown that Raylan is much more effective than her current husband, but we were also shown that there were very good reasons why she left Raylan in the first place, and she didn't really have a lot of forgiveness for him. So does this mean she's forgiving him, or she's just tired of her husband?
I mean,
or
I really took it as just kind of a moth to the flame thing. Like, she knew that she didn't want to be home.
That's a lot of flame, though, to get leave the house, get in the car.
Well, okay, I mean, but I got the vibe that it's like, I don't want to be in this house. I don't want to be near this guy. I want to be out. Where do I want to be? Well, not here, not here.
Yeah,
oh, wait, I'm getting close. I seem to be getting close to this place. Oh, do I go in? I guess I'm going in. Oh, this is happening now. That's what I took it for. But then again, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's machinations. The one thing I
guess what I'm asking, Brian, is what Winona did justified?
Oh, you duck. I'll tell you what wasn't justified was the lack of judicious funds applied to that graphics effects scene of Crowder blowing up that the meth bus. Like,
see, these are things that I don't notice.
Oh, I don't usually notice, but sometimes it's
there.
Not good, and then I notice. I
tell you what I did notice. We are being led to believe, 11 episodes in, that Boyd is a true believer.
Yeah,
like he may have his own version of it, but that bit that he did in the church with his dad, which I was a little like, why would his dad be at church? That seems a little odd, but I don't know. It's Harlan, small town. I've seen stranger people in church when I was growing up. But this was him basically I'm going to blow your stuff up. Like, he doesn't seem to be doing it to gain an advantage. He doesn't seem to be trying to steal the business, and maybe that'll change. But at this point, it does feel like Boyd just wants to blow stuff up and use God as his justification.
Walton Goggins, I don't think I've ever seen him act in any capacity like he did in that church scene, because that's what makes me think that he brought a complexity. We've never seen Boyd act that way, but also in that moment, I recognize this is Walton Goggins acting. He's accustomed to acting with cameras all around him, but he actually has an audience full of extras that he has to impassionedly get them fired up and fueled up.
Well, and if you think back to the scene of him preaching in the woods, that was his warm up for this, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is where he's like, oh, right, all my practicing in the woods, I can be the preacher.
There was a brief moment when he says to the preacher, when he's like, I'm not done, and he keeps on going, that I was like, oh shoot, this is going to end in a massacre. Like, something dark is about to happen here.
Yeah, I thought so too.
But it didn't quite go there.
Like two beats later, you see the preacher smiling, and you're like, oh, okay, the preacher was okay with this.
Yeah.
So this is not horrible.
Well, if the chat room is to be believed, then we are about to be through the turbulent patch, and we're about to hit fast-moving, clear-sailing, Formula One racing in the sky to space. That's 4 metaphors.
One more metaphor to pile in that. One more thing about Walton Goggins, too. He has stopped altogether being Shane Vendrell to me in this. I don't know about you.
I don't know. That accent's just too thick for me. It's hard for it may take a little bit longer.
You should travel more, Brian. You probably haven't left you haven't moved around enough.
I haven't been to these places. I didn't perform at that community college that they shot that scene at.
No, but the accent doesn't bother me, but then those things they tend to be lost on me anyway. But I will say that he has captured Boyd Crowder to me, and when we first saw it, I was like, oh look, there's Shane Vendrell pretending to be Boyd Crowder. And when I've been watching this, I forget that it's Walton Goggins. I think it struck me more because I watched The Hateful Eight this weekend, and watching Walton Goggins in that felt a little more like Shane Vendrell to me.
Interesting.
Partly because of the way the character in Hateful Eight is constructed, I think. And Boyd Crowder has his own accent, his own way of doing things, his own talk. that's very different than Shane, who was very shoot from the hip. Like Shane Vendrell would never have preached, right? He would never be trucked with any of that.
No, but Shane Vendrell, he's got those I don't know, those tweaker eyes. He's constantly scanning around and checking stuff out. Striker Rich in the chat room points out that Nick Searcy, Raylan's boss, was also the principal in 11/22/63. How did I not notice that? The moment he said that.
Yeah, and what was Bo, Mr. Friendly, was in something else. He was in The Magicians, which you guys haven't seen, but he plays a character in The Magicians recently, too.
Right on.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks, Striker Rich. And thank you guys for letting us spoil you. They make it back safely in Apollo 13. Bye.
Got it.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.